What if loneliness, the thing you avoid at all costs, was the greatest power you've ever held in your hands? Epicurus, a philosopher from 2,300 years ago, knew this, and history backs him up. Don't those moments when you're truly alone feel both heavy and freeing at the same time? Like the world just fades away and suddenly there's something raw, something powerful left behind. Maybe it's late at night. The house is silent. For once, no one's vying for your attention. It's just you. It's not just in your head. It's real. Some of history's greatest minds, philosophers, inventors, artists, found their strength in solitude, not in crowds. Think about it. The ideas that shaped our world, gravity, electricity, poetry, whole revolutions of thought, didn't come from loud rooms buzzing with chatter or endless social media feeds. They came from quiet corners, from people brave enough to sit with their thoughts uninterrupted. But here's the twist. Society tells us loneliness is a weakness, a flaw, something to dodge at all costs. We're taught to fear it, to stuff every silence with noise, music, notifications, voices, anything to keep the quiet away. Yet Epicurus saw it differently. He believed loneliness wasn't just a state of being. It was a hidden power, a secret, strength that unlocks truths most people spend their lives running from. So why does solitude scare us so much? Why do we fight it when it might be our biggest ally? And what did Epicurus know, buried in the dust of history, that we've forgotten? In our rush to stay connected, let's dive in and find out. Why are we afraid of being alone? It's not a simple answer. It's buried deep in our psychology, woven into how we're wired as a species. Think about this. When you're surrounded by people, friends, family, even strangers in a packed room, you feel safe, grounded, part of something bigger. Your brain hums along, comfortable with the rhythm of voices, laughter, familiar faces. It's a warm buzz like a fire on a cold night. But when you're alone, that safety net vanishes. The room goes quiet, the chatter fades, and suddenly, it's just you and the sound of your own breathing. Psychologists call this the social baseline theory. Our brains see relationships as a survival tool. For our ancestors, being part of a tribe wasn't just nice, it was everything. It meant protection from predators, shared resources, a shot at living another day. Isolation? That was a death sentence. If you were cast out, you faced the cold, the wild, the unknown, alone. No one to watch your back, no one to share the load. So even today, in the safety of our homes, when we're by ourselves, our amygdala, the brain's fear center, lights up, whispering that something's wrong, that we're vulnerable, even if we're just chilling on the couch with a cup of coffee. But here's where it gets fascinating, that fear isn't the whole story. It's just the surface. Studies show loneliness doesn't just spark anxiety, it sharpens your focus like a lens snapping into place. In 2019, a University of Chicago study found that people who spend time alone score higher on creativity and problem solving. Why? Because solitude cuts out distractions. No one to impress, no small talk to navigate, no notifications pinging. Every 5 seconds, your mind turns inward. It's like a muscle that only grows when you stop leaning on others. Think of it as a reset button. Suddenly, you're not reacting to the world. You're exploring it from the inside out. You start noticing things, the way light spills through a window, the rhythm of your own thoughts, the questions you never have time to ask when you're busy keeping up. Now, contrast that with social overload. Ever notice how exhausting it is to keep up with group chatter at a party, everyone talking over each other, or to scroll through endless feeds, liking, commenting, comparing? That's cognitive overload. Your brain juggling too many inputs at once. A 2022 MIT study found that constant social interaction ramps up stress hormones like cortisol, leaving us drained, foggy, even cranky. Solitude flips that. It's calm. It's intentional. It gives your brain room to breathe, to untangle itself. A 2023 Oxford study showed that just 20 minutes of purposeful solitude can lower blood pressure and boost mental clarity. But here's the catch. Most people don't see it as strength. They see it as a void, a failure, a sign something's missing. Why? Because loneliness forces us to face ourselves, and that's where the real discomfort kicks in. Psychologists call this the self-confrontation effect. When you're alone, there's no one to mirror, no one to validate your thoughts, no one to distract you from what's simmering underneath. You're left with your own mind, your doubts, your fears, your unfiltered truth. It's like standing in front of a mirror with no makeup, no filters, no excuses. For some, that's terrifying. A famous 2014 University of Virginia study found that people would rather give themselves electric shocks, actual pain, than sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. Let that sink in. We'd rather hurt ourselves than face silence. Why? Because we're so used to external noise, conversations, screens, music, the hum of a busy world, that silence feels alien, even threatening. It's like stepping into a dark room where anything might be lurking, but that discomfort, it's exactly what makes loneliness powerful. It's a forge, a crucible, a place where you're shaped. When you sit with it, you start seeing things differently, things others miss. Solitude doesn't just show you who you are, it builds resilience. Studies on introverts show they often outperform extroverts in tasks needing deep focus, precisely because they're okay being alone. A 2020 Journal of Personality paper found that people who embrace solitude report better emotional regulation. They handle stress better because they've learned to rely on themselves, not a crowd. They've built an inner framework that holds up when the world shakes. So if loneliness can sharpen us, strengthen us, why does society push back so hard? Why do we celebrate the loud, the connected, the always on, while shunning the quiet and solitary? It's not just habit, it's evolution etched into our bones. Our brains are still wired for the tribe. A 2021 Stanford study showed that social rejection triggers the same pain pathways as physical injury. Being alone feels like a wound because, for millennia, it was. If you were ostracized 10,000 years ago, you didn't just lose friends, you lost survival. But here's the paradox: what once kept us alive now holds us back. In a world of constant connection, texts, calls, Zoom, likes, loneliness isn't a threat anymore, it's a superpower. It lets you step outside the herd, see what's really going on, and build something new, something that doesn't bend to the crowd's roar. And yet we resist. We fill our days with noise, podcasts in the car, group chats at lunch, Netflix at night, anything to avoid the quiet. Why? Because solitude takes guts. It's not passive, it's active. It's you, unplugged, wrestling with your own mind. It's you asking questions with no easy answers. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I really want? That's scary. But it's also where growth happens. It's where you ditch the scripts society hands you. Be busy, be social, be seen, and write your own. Think about your own life. When was the last time you were truly alone? No phone, no distractions, just you. How did it feel? Uncomfortable? Restless? Maybe even freeing? That tension is the spark. Loneliness isn't just a feeling. It's a state of potential. To understand how it can become strength, how it can shift from a burden to a gift, we need to look at Epicurus, a guy who didn't just accept solitude, but turned it into a philosophy of power. Epicurus lived over 2,300 years ago in a bustling world not so different from ours, full of noise, ambition, and distraction. Athens was alive with markets, debates, and the clatter of daily life, but Epicurus stepped away from it. His ideas cut through it all like a knife, sharp and unapologetic. Most people know him for chasing happiness. He's often pegged as the pleasure guy, but what's forgotten is how he saw loneliness as the path to it. For Epicurus, real pleasure wasn't in endless parties, lavish feasts, or stacks of gold. It was in simplicity, self-sufficiency, and solitude. He called it ataraxia, a state of calm, unshaken by the world's chaos, a stillness nothing could touch. And the key to ataraxia? Stepping away from the crowd. Epicurus believed most people chase happiness in all the wrong places. They run after approval, status, constant company, things he saw as traps, chains dressed up as comforts. In his famous garden, a small community outside Athens, he lived with a few close friends, but spent a lot of time alone, reflecting, writing, thinking. He argued that loneliness wasn't emptiness, it was freedom. Freedom from what he might have called the need to please. When you're alone, you don't have to perform. You don't have to smile when you're not happy, nod when you disagree, or twist your thoughts to fit someone else's mold. You can just be raw, real, unfiltered. But Epicurus didn't see solitude as an escape. He saw it as a tool, a lens. In letters to his followers, like the one to Menoetius, he wrote that time alone lets you peel back illusions about yourself, about life. Most people, he said, live distracted, chasing desires that never satisfy. More money, more friends, more stuff, more noise. They're like hamsters on a wheel, running but never getting anywhere. Loneliness makes you stop. It forces you to face those desires, to question them. Why do I want this? Does it even matter? What happens if I let it go? And when you strip away the layers, when you sit with the silence long enough, you find what lasts. Peace, clarity, purpose. Not the fleeting kind, but the kind that anchors. Here's where his forgotten lesson shines. Epicurus believed loneliness is power because it builds independence. When you're okay being alone, you stop needing others to define you. You become your own anchor, your own compass. Think about that for a sec. How much of your life is spent chasing validation? Likes on a post, nods in a meeting, applause from a crowd. Epicurus would say that's a chain, a tether to other people's whims. Solitude snaps it. It's not about cutting people out completely. It's about not needing them to feel whole. It's about standing tall when the room clears out. But he wasn't naive. He knew solitude could be tough. Too much of it and you risk slipping into despair, a loneliness that swallows instead of strengthens. His advice? Balance it. Seek friends who enrich your mind, not drain it. He didn't. Live in total isolation. His garden wasn't a bunker. It was a place of quiet connection, a handful of souls who got it. Use solitude to sharpen your thoughts, not to wallow in them. For Epicurus, loneliness wasn't about shutting out the world. It was about cutting through the noise to find strength, to find what's real. He even tied this to his take on pleasure, and here's where he flips the script on what we think of as hedonism. Unlike the wild excess we might picture, Roman orgies or modern binge culture, Epicurus wasn't about that. He said true pleasure comes from absence, absence of pain, absence of want. Loneliness, he argued, teaches you to need less. When you're alone, you realize how little it takes to be content. A good book, a clear sky, a warm meal, your own thoughts. That's power. Not relying on the world to fill you up, not being a puppet to its demands. Compare that to how we live. Now, we're bombarded. Ads telling us we need more. Apps begging for our attention. Social pressure to always be on. Epicurus would look at our lives and shake his head. He'd say, we're enslaved, not free. In one of his fragments, he wrote, "Nothing is enough for the man to whom enough is too little." Loneliness turns that upside down. It shows you that enough is already here, if you just stop running long enough to see it. He wasn't alone. In this, other thinkers echoed it. The Stoics, like Seneca, praised solitude as a way to master yourself. But Epicurus made it practical. He didn't just theorize, he lived it. His garden wasn't about fame or power, it was about living simply, quietly, powerfully. So if Epicurus saw loneliness as this profound gift, a wellspring of strength, why do we still run from it? Why do we treat it like a disease instead of a discipline, a punishment instead of a privilege? History has the answer, and it's a story of brilliance, rejection, and quiet rebellion that stretches across centuries. Throughout history, people who embraced solitude often changed the world, but it came at a cost. Take Isaac Newton. In 1665, the Great Plague forced him out of Cambridge, and he holed up at his family's countryside home in Woolsthorpe. No parties, no crowds, just him, his books and his mind. In that solitude, in just 1 year, he worked out the laws of gravity and calculus, ideas that still prop up the modern world, from bridges to spaceships. He watched an apple fall and saw the universe move. But Newton was a loner his whole life. Prickly, antisocial, often clashing with those around him. Society didn't celebrate him until long after he was gone, when his work was too big to ignore. His power came from being alone, but it cost him connection, warmth, the ease of fitting in. Or think about Emily Dickinson. She wrote over 1,800 poems, mostly in the silence of her bedroom in Amherst, Massachusetts. She rarely left home, preferring her own company to the bustle of 19th century life, carriages rolling by, neighbors gossiping, the hum of a small town. Her words reshaped poetry, raw, piercing, timeless, like shards of glass catching light. But in her lifetime, people called her eccentric, reclusive, weird. She published almost nothing, sharing her work only with a few trusted souls. It was only after her death, when her sister found the poems stitched into little books, that her power came to light. Solitude was her canvas, but it painted her as an outsider, a shadow in her own time. Then there's Henry David Thoreau. In 1845, he moved to a cabin by Walden Pond to live alone for 2 years, a speck of wood surrounded by trees and water. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach." His book Walden challenged society's obsession with busyness and materialism, factories churning, cities sprawling, people racing after wealth. He urged us to slow down, to think, to question. But back then, many saw him as odd, a dropout, a guy who didn't fit the American dream of progress. Today we call him a visionary, a prophet of simplicity. His solitude gave him clarity, but it set him apart, a voice crying out from the wilderness. These stories reveal a pattern. Solitude fuels breakthroughs, but society pushes back. Why? Because loneliness threatens the status quo. When you're alone, you're not buying into groupthink. You're not chasing the same goals, wealth, fame, constant connection, that keep society humming like a well-oiled machine. Psychologists call this system justification theory. People defend the way things are because change feels risky, shaky. A solitary thinker questions that system, pokes holes in it, and that makes them dangerous. They see cracks where others see walls, possibilities where others see rules. Look at today's world. It's louder than ever. Social media glorifies being seen, being liked, being busy. Algorithms reward posts that scream for attention, outrage, drama, quick laughs. A 2023 study found that content with emotional hooks gets 70% more engagement than thoughtful, quiet posts. Why? Because our brains crave instant hits, not slow reflection. Loneliness doesn't fit that mold. It's not loud. It's not viral. You can't hashtag it or squeeze it into a 15-second reel. But that's exactly why it's powerful. It's where real change starts, away from the spotlight. Think about the education system. Kids are taught to collaborate, to fit in, to stay busy. Group projects, class discussions, extracurriculars. There's no room for the kid who'd rather sit alone with a book. The quiet ones get labeled shy, antisocial, even troubled. Workplaces are the same. Open offices, team meetings, networking events. Solitude gets sidelined, even punished. A 2024 survey found that 60% of employees feel pressured to be visible at work, even when it kills their focus. Yet history proves the greatest ideas often come from those who step away. Take Leonardo da Vinci. He spent years alone, sketching, experimenting, dreaming up machines centuries ahead of his time. Flying machines, tanks, bridges. He didn't care about fitting in. He cared about understanding. His notebooks, packed with solitary genius, were barely understood in his day. Or Nikola Tesla, working late into the night, alone in his lab, inventing the future, alternating current, wireless, tech. Both were oddballs, mocked or ignored in their time, celebrated only later. Society doesn't reward loneliness in the moment. It fears what it can't control. Even in ancient times, this held true. Diogenes, the Greek philosopher, lived in a barrel, rejecting society's comforts. He mocked the crowds, saying they were slaves to pointless pursuits, money, status, noise. People laughed at him then. Now we quote him. Loneliness gave him clarity and power. Or take the Desert Fathers, early Christian monks who fled to the wilderness in the 3rd century. They sought God in silence, not cathedrals, and their writings, shaped theology for centuries. Society called them crazy. History calls them wise, and it's not just the past. Today, writers like J.K. Rowling crafted Harry Potter in quiet cafes away from the world. Programmers like Linus Torvalds built Linux, the open-source software that powers the internet, in late-night coding sessions alone. Loneliness isn't weakness, it's the birthplace of creation. But society still clings to the tribe, scared of what happens when someone walks away. So what does this mean for you? If loneliness is the greatest power, it's not because it's easy, it's because it's rare. Epicurus was right. Most people run from it, chasing noise to drown out the quiet. But when you embrace it, you tap into something society can't touch. You don't need millions cheering you on, just the courage to stand alone when it matters. It's not about becoming a hermit. It's about knowing you're enough. Does that mean you should isolate yourself forever? No, Epicurus didn't. He had his garden, his small circle. The trick is balance. Use loneliness to build your strength, then share it with those who get it. Don't waste your thoughts on people who'd rather scroll than listen. Find your tribe, whether in person, online, or in the pages of a book. The world's noisy, but you don't have to be. Here's a challenge. Next time you're alone, don't grab your phone. Sit with it. See what comes up. It might feel weird at first. Our brains aren't used to it, but that's where the power hides. Epicurus said, "To need little is to be free." Loneliness teaches you that. It's not a curse, it's a gift. One society's forgotten, but you don't have to. If this hits home, let me know in the comments. Have you ever found strength in being alone? What did it teach you? Let's start a conversation. And if you want more forgotten lessons from history's quiet rebels, hit that subscribe button. There's so much more to dig into.